Imagine living in a house with no mirrors. No one to reflect back a version of yourself you don't want to see. No one to witness your flaws. It's quiet. It's perfectly, suffocatingly quiet. This is the life of the person who cuts everyone off. They are not just walking away from people. They are systematically dismantling every mirror that could show them their own reflection. And psychology has a name for this silent, self-imposed exile. It's not freedom. It's the most elegant form of self-destruction I've ever seen. Today, we're going to walk into the mind of the person who cuts everyone off. Not to excuse it, not to romanticize it, but to understand the brutal, honest psychology behind it. Because maybe you are that person, and you've never felt truly seen. Or maybe you're the one still bleeding from the cut, and understanding is the only path to closure you'll ever get. Either way, let's talk about the silent war no one sees. There's a quote from the novel Normal People by Sally Rooney that has always haunted me. It goes, "No one can be independent of other people completely, so why not give up the attempt?" On the surface, it sounds like a plea for connection. But for the person who cuts everyone off, this quote isn't romantic. It's terrifying. It's a reminder of a failure because they tried. They tried dependence. And somewhere along the line, it backfired so catastrophically that the only logical solution their nervous system could find was complete and total disconnection. We have to start here with the most uncomfortable truth. The person who cuts everyone off is rarely the villain of their own story. They are, more often than not, the survivor. Think of a war veteran who dives to the ground when a car backfires. Their body doesn't wait for a rational assessment of the situation. The sound, the threat, the survival mechanism, it's all instant. Now imagine that same wiring, but instead of a car backfiring, the trigger is intimacy. The trigger is a friend saying, "We need to talk." The trigger is a family dinner where the same old passive-aggressive comment lands like a scalpel in an almost healed wound. For someone with a history of relational trauma, and this is key because we're not talking about casual rudeness, but deep, often childhood-based wounds, connection itself becomes the car backfire. Dr. Gabor Mate, a renowned expert on trauma and addiction, explains that trauma isn't what happened to you. Trauma is what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you. It's the wound that doesn't close. The person who cuts everyone off isn't running from you necessarily. They're running from a physiological echo inside their own body that screams, "You are not safe." And the cruelest part? The thing they're running from isn't even happening in the present. It's a memory living in their cells. Let me paint a picture for you that might feel uncomfortably familiar. There's a child who grows up in a home where love is a transaction. Affection is given when they're quiet, when they're successful, when they fit the mold. But the moment they have a need, the moment they cry too loud, ask for too much, or make a mistake, the door to love slams shut. They are met with the silent treatment, or a parent's emotional withdrawal, or outright rage. What does that child learn? They learn that closeness is the precursor to pain. They learn that their authentic self is fundamentally unlovable. And they learn an equation that will govern their adult life. Vulnerability equals annihilation. Fast forward 20 years. That child is now an adult in a relationship. They love their partner, but the partner has a bad day and speaks in a sharp tone. A normal relational rupture, right? For a securely attached person, this is a blip. For this person, their body doesn't hear a sharp tone. It hears the door slamming from their childhood. It feels the same cellular dread. They don't think, "My partner is stressed." They experience, "It's happening again. I am about to be abandoned. I need to leave before I'm left." And so they do. They cut the person off. Maybe not in that moment, but the countdown to the final door close has begun. The death of the relationship isn't the sharp tone. It's the 1,000 sharp tones that came before, each one opening a wound no partner was ever supposed to be responsible for healing. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The person who cuts everyone off often believes they are making a clear, logical choice. They will tell you a story. He was too controlling. She was too needy. My family is toxic. And those stories might be partly true, but the unconscious director behind the scenes is a terrified child holding a script that says, "Leave them before they inevitably hurt you." This brings us to a harsh truth that's difficult to say and perhaps harder to hear. Cutting people off can be a form of grandiosity masquerading as self-care. Let me explain. Self-care is setting a boundary. Self-care is saying, "I can't take your call right now, but I love you." Cutting someone off completely, without a conversation, without a repair attempt, without a door left even slightly ajar, that can be a way of saying, "I have deemed you unworthy of growth. I have placed myself as the sole judge of your character, and my verdict is final." It's a way of playing God in a relationship, and it feels powerful. For someone who has felt powerless their entire life, the act of cutting the cord delivers an intoxicating hit of control. Finally, I decided the ending. Finally, you can't hurt me anymore. But that power is a prison in disguise. Because every time you exercise that ultimate, final power, you shrink your world. You curate a reality so sterile, so free of conflict that nothing real can grow in it. You silence the very feedback that could have saved you. There's a concept from the philosopher Martin Buber that feels deeply relevant here. Buber talked about two ways of relating to others: I-it and I-thou. In an I-it relationship, you see the other person as an object, a source of validation, a provider of safety, a problem to be managed. When they stop fulfilling that function, they are discarded. In an I-thou relationship, you see the other person as a whole, sovereign being, complex, flawed, separate from your needs. You relate to their soul, not just their utility to your own emotional regulation. The person who cuts everyone off often lives almost entirely in I-it. They have to, because if they fully saw the person they're leaving, if they saw their humanity, their genuine apology, their own childhood wounds that flared up and caused the fight, it would be so much harder to leave. And staying for them doesn't feel like loving. It feels like dying. Buber's work says a terrifying thing, that living only in it mode over a lifetime causes the soul to atrophy. You can't just cut off others. Eventually, you cut off the parts of yourself that needed them. Your capacity for empathy, for seeing someone else's perspective, for holding space for another's messy growth. It calcifies. And what do you have left? A perfectly curated, silent room. And you, alone, holding the scissors, wondering why you feel so deeply, profoundly empty. There's a psychological phenomenon known as splitting that we have to address. It's a defense mechanism often rooted in borderline personality structure, but honestly, to a lesser degree, we've all done it. Splitting is when a person cannot hold two opposing truths about someone at the same time. You are either all good or you are all evil. My mother was either a nurturing saint or she was a monster with no in-between. My ex was either my soulmate or a complete narcissist. For the person who cuts others off, this all-or-nothing thinking is the engine. When someone disappoints them, they flip from the good category to the bad category instantly. There's no gray area. There's no, "I love this person and they hurt me and both are true." This is why they can seem so heartless. They've effectively deleted the version of you they once loved. The memory of shared laughter becomes a foreign object. They've rewritten the narrative so that you were always this bad, disguising your toxicity, and now they're finally free. It's a psychological trick to avoid the pain of grief. Grieving a relationship is messy. It admits that something beautiful was lost, that the other person mattered. Cutting someone off in the grip of splitting bypasses grief and goes straight to a clean, righteous anger. But clean anger doesn't scar, it just hollows you out. Let's talk about the body now, because it's not just a mind game. Polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, explains that our nervous system has a hierarchy of responses to threat. Social engagement is at the top. When we feel safe, we connect. Below that is fight or flight, and at the very bottom, at the most primitive, is the dorsal vagal shutdown. This is the freeze response, the collapse, the playing dead. When someone cuts everyone off, they are not in a regulated state of wise adulthood. They are in a chronic state of functional freeze or flight. Their nervous system has spent so much time scanning for danger in human faces, in tones of voice, in unread text messages, that it is utterly depleted. Cutting people off isn't just a choice, it's a biological collapse. It's the body saying, I have no more capacity for attunement. The very act of being perceived by another person feels like a demand. Another conversation feels like an assault. So they retreat into an isolated cave, not because they despise humanity, but because their physiology interprets every social interaction as a bear attack. This is the great tragedy. In their desperate attempt to find safety, they isolate themselves in a cage where no one can reach them. And the safety they find isn't the vibrant peace of genuine connection. It's the dead, numb silence of a system that has turned itself off so it won't feel the pain anymore. If you're still listening and you recognize yourself in these words, I want to speak to you directly now. Not as a lecturer, but as someone who understands that you are not a monster. You are exhausted. You learn to cut people off because, at some point in your life, no one taught you how to repair. No one modeled how to have a conflict without annihilation. No one came to you after a fight, sat you down, and said, I was wrong. I love you. Let's fix this. You only witnessed doors slamming, so you became fluent in endings. You became a master of the clean break. And I know there are nights you lie awake and feel the ghost of every person you've discarded. I know you miss their laugh. I know you wonder if you're the toxic one. The thought loops are relentless. You are not broken. You are protecting a wound so deep that you've built a fortress around it. But here's the harsh truth you need to let in. That fortress is a mausoleum. You can't heal a wound that's never exposed to air. You can't learn to trust if you never let yourself be slightly unsafe. Brené Brown, whose work on vulnerability has shaped modern psychology, says, vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. If we want greater clarity in our purpose or deeper and more meaningful spiritual lives, vulnerability is the path. I'm not asking you to let toxic people back in. Let me be absolutely clear on this. Some people must be cut off. Abusers, manipulators who refuse help, people who actively seek to destroy your peace, they lose the privilege of access to you. That's not the pathology of cutting off. That's wisdom. That's boundary setting. But not everyone who disappoints you is an abuser. Not everyone who fails you is a narcissist. Some are just human. And the test of your healing isn't how cleanly you can leave when things get hard. The test is whether you can learn the terrifying, beautiful art of staying. The art of saying, you hurt me and I'm still here and we need to talk about it. For those of you who have been cut off, who are holding the other end of this silence, I see you too. The not knowing is a special kind of torture. You've replayed the last conversation 1,000 times. You've written letters you'll never send. Psychology gives you a framework, not an excuse. Their departure was likely never fully about you. You were just the character who walked onto their old, looping play. They projected onto you a parent who failed them, a past lover who betrayed them. You were screaming your love in a language they don't speak, because their ears are tuned only to the frequency of threat. This doesn't absolve them, but it can release you. You don't need their apology to understand that you weren't a monster. You were a mirror they weren't ready to look into. There's a beautiful, sad line in the movie Good Will Hunting, where Robin Williams' character says to Will, who pushes everyone away before they can leave him, "It's not your fault." And he has to say it over and over until Will finally breaks down and lets it in. It's not your fault. If you're the one who cuts people off, hear this with every cell in your body. The thing you're terrified of has already happened. The abandonment, the betrayal, the loneliness you're trying so hard to outrun, you're creating the exact conditions for it right now in your life. The only way out is to turn around and face the original wound with a therapist, with a book, with a compassionate witness. And if you're the one who was cut, the closure you seek must come from within. The cut was their answer, a deeply flawed, fear-based, trauma-driven answer, but it's the only one you'll get. Honor the love you gave, grieve it, and let them go not with resentment, but with a wish that one day, in the quiet of their silent fortress, they dare to crack the door open and feel the terrifying, healing warmth of genuine human connection once again. The silence that follows a door closing for the last time doesn't have to be permanent, but someone has to be brave enough to open it again. Maybe that someone is you.